Hey, what's going on, everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Titus, and this is another episode of Melanated Artists in Performance. Tonight, I had the opportunity of speaking with Dr. Amy Lewis, the Assistant Professor of Music Education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I met her this past summer at Summer Music Clinic, and while we were having discussions about just life and just our own musical background and experiences, at some point she was trying to convince me to go back to school to get my doctorate. The door's not closed, but right now the door is not open for that yet. But who knows? Maybe someday it'll happen. But while we were having a discussion, I thought she'd be a great guest to have on the podcast. So she's an author, she's a musician, and a professor. She has an article called Freedom Dreaming, something that we talked about, which was a very interesting process as far as getting kids to think about the freedom of just kind of seeing music in their own type of way and own type of style. We talked about the importance of joy in our life, how there is life beyond work, and how her experience at a jazz camp led her to finding joy in teaching. Modeling imperfection and how that leads to inspiring students. And another topic that we discussed is something that we all need is knowing when to rest. So I enjoyed the conversation with Dr. Lewis, and I know that you will enjoy this episode. And again, thank you for joining me on another episode of Melanated Artists in Performance. All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Titus. Welcome to another great episode of Melanated Artists in Performance. And tonight I have Amy Lewis, who is Assistant Professor of Music Education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I went to school. And I'm really glad to have her on tonight, and we're going to do a lot of discussing and just getting to know her. And this is going to be the first episode of the second season, so I am so grateful to have Amy on. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Um, so I want to get started with just how you got into music, and the process of going into music education, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri is my home. Yep, I rep KC all the time.
Okay.
And yeah, so growing up, I played music from a young age because it was part of my family. My grandfather was a jazz pianist. J. McShann, uh, his orchestra, the J. McShann Orchestra, was one of the first orchestras that Charlie Parker played in.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so J. McShann is my grandfather, but he was grandpa to me
Okay.
and my siblings. But I had the fortunate ability to, like learn different things from him, sit next to him on the piano, and just have a space where, you're just kind of playing, you're just kind of free with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Amy, make sure you learn how to read music. That's so important. I was like, okay, grandpa, okay. Even though what I, loved most about his playing was nothing that was written down, right?
Okay.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that, also shapes me as a musician. So played throughout my childhood and did my undergrad at DePaul University in Chicago.
Okay.
Lovely experience. When I started, I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't think I want to do music ed. It
Okay.
wasn't until I participated in a jazz camp and took the intro to music ed course. I had some experiences of teaching, and I was able to experience the magic of teaching, right? Of sharing music and, sharing music in a collective way. So it
Mm-hmm.
was about my sophomore-ish year, like the end of my freshman year, where I was like, okay, this music ed thing might have something to it. And you also get insurance, and a steady paycheck. this might be for me, right? And then you also have joy, right? So you got work and then you got joy. And I'm sitting here like, okay, okay, I can deal with this.
Okay.
And so that was my journey toward becoming a music educator. And then I taught for many years in the Chicagoland suburbs.
Okay. So when you are growing up, sometimes in families, there's a expectation of, so your grandfather wanted you to learn how to read music. Were your parents musical, or was it your grandfather, just your grandfather?
It was my grandfather. If my mom were to say it, she would say, it skips a generation. But that's not true. My mom is musical as well,
Okay.
She sings in her church choir, absolutely.
Okay.
And, but I had a lot of support from my
Okay.
parents,
Hmm.
and from my family members and, from my extended family members, church members as well. There was a lot of support in saying, this is something that, if you enjoy it, you seem to be good at it, we support you. You should
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm. Yeah, because sometimes, at least where I grew up in Milwaukee, like my family supported me, but what I noticed when I became an educator, sometimes that support wasn't really there with the
Mm.
students that I was teaching because they didn't see it as practical. The parents didn't see it as something practical. So it was like, well, why would you become a musician? Or, can you live off of, being a musician and or a music teacher? And to me, it was disheartening because I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm a clear example of, enjoying what I do. I enjoy the kids. I wanted to, at one point, wanted to be a musician, but I thought I don't want that pressure of being a performer. So let me go into education to inspire other people to be educators. And, it's great to hear that you had that family support of what it is that you wanted to do. Because I know sometimes in our community, it's just not seen that way.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think the choice of being a music educator does kind of make a difference because um making a living being a performing musician is hard,
Mhm.
it's hard out here. And I knew for me, I got joy in playing music in a safe setting where, it's just people who love one another, right? It's
Mhm.
not necessarily about me being in the presence of an audience.
Mhm.
Whenever I'm having a great time playing music, it's collective. It's when the audience is with me, right?
Mhm.
It's when we're all together. And so I knew whenever I chose to go to music school, that I did not want to do music performance. That felt like too much pressure, very similar to you.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew I enjoyed playing music and creating music and writing music, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think I got support from going toward the music ed route, because there was a sense of financial stability there.
Okay. Yep. Well, that's good. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Well, and financial stability.
Right.
Like, ugh, like it's hard. It's hard for being a teacher too. It is
Right.
hard being a teacher.
Right. Especially when we make so much money for what it is that we do. um, so what level did you teach? What was your experience?
Right. So I taught kindergarten through eighth grade. It
Okay.
was, yeah, and it was a year-round school.
Mm.
I enjoyed it. It was also, it was a moment where I was able to grow as a music teacher, an educator, and also just grow as a human. Um, my responsibilities included kindergarten and first grade general music, fifth through eighth grade band, which was lovely. We had three different sections,
Mm-hmm.
jazz band, or I mean, three different levels, like beginning, intermediate, advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And we had jazz band that I was responsible for middle school choir and also sixth through eighth grade general music. So I did a lot. Um, and then I also did a semester, I taught at Urban Prep Academy for a semester, and I did like a little a cappella thing with the gentleman there. That was great as well. So that's my background with teaching.
And that was at one school?
Yeah, yeah. The kindergarten through eighth grade was at one school, and then the high school urban prep, that was only a short thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only one semester. That was at a different school.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So what were what were like some of the challenges that you faced with being a teacher, or maybe even with the students, the population you were working with?
Yeah. So the population that was at the school that I taught at, it was very working class, and it the school was unique because it was the only kindergarten through eighth grade school in the district.
Okay.
All the other schools in the district were either K-5
Mm-hmm.
or 6-8.
Okay.
And so this school was unique because it was kindergarten through eighth grade, and it also had a balanced calendar, meaning we started in the middle of July. That was the first day of school. Yeah, it
Okay.
was a balanced year-round calendar. So it was a choice school. People had to, at times, there was a lottery to get into this particular school,
Mm-hmm.
because there were some families that were like, this balanced calendar works for me, this is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so within that, you know, what I experienced was a lot of support
Okay.
within the music department. I felt supported by my admin,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt supported by colleagues. I was heavily involved with the union at
Mm-hmm.
the school, and I think that definitely helped as well, and developed my love for being part of a union. Additionally, what was interesting about this district is that even though the district the student population, depending on the schools, were pretty could be racially diverse.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the macro of the district, um, depending on how the lines were drawn between schools, the schools were still pretty segregated with the student population
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher population. I mean, during my 6 years there, it was myself and two other Black teachers that
Mm-hmm.
were in the district, and that wasn't even at the same time, right? And so depending on the year, you know, I was the only Black educator in the district. Or before me, it was a different person who was the only for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that provided a different experience as well with
Mm-hmm.
regards to navigating, navigating other means of support from from finding the community of folks who look like me,
Right. Right.
you know.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I've gone
Yeah.
through that myself. When I taught in Milwaukee, it wasn't as severe in the school that I was at, but it was more of it was predominantly African American, and then we had a great amount of Hispanic students.
Hmm.
So the way that it was, I forget how they talked about um, the languages,
Oh yeah.
and so the black kids wanted to take Spanish. And so the way that the program went, the English as a second language at that school was not for the African American students, but it was for the Hispanic students who spoke Spanish and were integrated in
And trying to
English.
learn English.
And so the black kids, they would always ask me, it's like, well, how come we can't take Spanish? And I'm like, that's a good question,
Mhm,
because the way that the ESL was presented to us, you would think that it was for everyone, and it wasn't. And
mhm,
so and so then the Hispanic kids were also like on a completely different floor, um, in the other part of the school, and they learned stuff in English and in Spanish. And the only time that they mixed was lunch
mhm.
and in their specials
Yeah.
or creative arts classes. So, and it was really just kind of disheartening because because you see two groups of kids like wanting to learn more about each other,
Learn together.
right? And it just wasn't happening. So, but anyway, so okay, so now you've taught there for 6 years, and then when did you decide to go into higher education or go
Here
back to school?
that's a great question. So,
And
yeah,
why?
and why? So while I was, teaching in this district, I was starting to notice just some of the inequities within education at large, right? Inequities that aren't just present at one district, but are present, throughout our education system.
Hmm.
And I had questions, right? I had questions, why is it that certain school districts have so much money, so many resources, or
Hmm.
even within one district, why is it that this school is overpopulated, but this school is underpopulated? And also, why are and questioning some of like the resources
Hmm.
that follow that, right? In
Hmm.
a school that isn't busting at the seams, right?
Right.
Where you know it, I had questions. I had questions. And
Hmm.
so, with those questions, I decided to pursue, my PhD. Um, I wanted to understand some of these social inequities.
Hmm.
I wanted to have a better understanding of why, why why this society um functions in a way in a way where everything feels like things are scarce,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's abundance. There's
Yeah.
abundance. Everybody can have,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so these questions, that's what fueled my decision to go into higher ed.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, that's great because I feel the same way. And I've taught in Milwaukee, taught in Ohio and Cleveland. I've taught 1 year in DC, and now I'm in PG in Maryland. And it is frustrating because, like you
Mhm.
said, there's an abundance, but why does one school get all of this and then another school gets barely anything?
Sure.
And it's like they're punished for something they have no control over.
Hmm.
And it's really sad. So now that you're in higher ed, and so let's see, how do I ask this question? So what is the name of, I guess, maybe a course that you teach
Here at
at
UW
Madison?
Madison?
Hmm.
Sure. So, I teach a variety of courses,
Hmm.
a couple of undergrad courses, a couple of graduate courses. One of my undergrad courses that I teach is about composition and arranging for music teachers. So helping music teachers to understand or to broaden their ability to compose and arrange, and also getting them um, getting them to understand the the importance and impact of creating space for their future students to compose,
Mm-hmm.
right? To where it's not just about playing on the notes on a page that's given to you, but hey, let's create the notes on the page ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or let's just create some notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
With no
Hmm.
page, right? And
Right,
so
right.
that's one of my undergrad classes. I really enjoy it. One of the grad classes that I teach, it's called Historical Perspectives of Music Ed, and it kind of gives a brief history of music education,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that we interrogate the history of music education is through the lens of interest convergence and thinking
Okay.
about change, right? Thinking about how change happens and
Mm-hmm.
how power and who has power,
Mm-hmm.
how that influences change. And so, with an understanding of interest convergence, we think about how music ed has evolved or not evolved within the context of the United States. So those are the courses. Those are just a couple of courses I teach.
So that was the one that I was hoping you were going to talk about, because I want to know um, the the discussions. Is it a do you can you have discussions in this class?
Oh yeah, it's discussion based. We
Okay.
talk. We
So
talk,
that
we write, we read, we
okay.
apply.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at, and you're teaching music educators, future music educators.
So this is a grad course. So typically the student who is taking this class is a student who has already taught.
Okay. Okay. Um, so do you teach undergrads
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
okay on
But
this?
not the historical perspectives of music ed. The
Hmm,
historical perspectives of music ed is a graduate class.
okay. So what are some of the discussions that are had from those that have already been teaching when it comes to that? Like do they talk about their experiences and the
Ooh,
inequalities, or
yeah.
things that they haven't seen or experienced, or because I'm curious myself, because
Mhm.
when I was reading, um well, when I saw the video of you discussing on YouTube, as far as like what your position is and how you go about discussing it, I thought, oh wow, I wish I would have had that when I was at Madison, because it would be eye opening to have that kind of dialogue,
Yeah.
um, and also, I mean, 1990s, 2000s, that was a different time. Things were not as some things were not as open, or
Acceptable.
the discovery of certain things were still hidden, um, in society. So yeah. So what are some of the things that your students talk about?
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of teaching this class once, and it's an every other year class.
Okay.
So I'll teach it again in the fall, this
Hmm.
upcoming fall, 2025. And yeah, it's a course that generates a lot of questions,
Hmm.
and it, there's never this course is not designed to have any type of like concrete black or white answers, right? This
Hmm.
course is about recognizing context. It's
Hmm.
about recognizing difference and recognizing, um, you know, the importance of generating questions,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
and finding finding ways to sit with uncertainty
Mhm.
and identify where to go to find a sense of of grounding, right? So
Mhm.
if we are talking about access, right? Because that is something that folks are trying to expand in many different ways.
Mhm.
There are, some students who recognize, like, okay, if we can just get every single student an instrument, right? That's one barrier that we are removing, but that's not the only barrier. There are
Mhm.
other things that we as music educators have to be aware of if we are trying to create like tangible change, and
Mhm.
if we are trying to if we're trying to help our profession evolve,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
there are some barriers where it's like, okay, we can give everybody instruments. Great.
Right.
Now, how can we create practices that that connect to our students and that create a sense of autonomy, right?
Mhm.
Where we're centering our students' creative selves while also learning all these techniques within their instrument that they have, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and there are a lot of incredible music teachers who do this, right? And have been doing innovative things like this for years,
Mhm.
right? And I just think it's important for us as at the graduate level, at the undergraduate level, for us to welcome these questions,
Mhm.
interrogate these questions, and think about it from a personal standpoint, and also from a system standpoint. You know,
Mhm. Mhm. Why is this not taught in undergrad?
it's also so like these themes are also taught in our undergrad classes.
Okay.
My colleague Jesse Rathgeber and I were pretty aligned when we're thinking about how we desire for our undergrad students and anybody who gets to be in our classes. We're pretty intentional about um, uh, we're pretty intentional about making sure there's space for interrogating systems, right? There's space to broaden our understanding and to make sure our students know that their experience is their experience. And that's a
Mhm.
great, I'm certain they had a great experience. That's probably why they're in our classrooms.
Mhm.
And, they have their experience. Now let's broaden that and
Mhm.
say, yes, you can do this and you can do it in this way too,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
yes, we can use music notation in this way. We can also use this type of music notation or this definition of music literacy as well.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
So don't
Um,
worry, the undergrads get it too.
that's good. No, because I mean, like I said before, listening to you, and I can see and hear the passion in in you wanting to take those educators and make them better by making them think broader. And it just would have been great. And it is great now that it is happening, that it is finally happening. I should just say that. Um, because I just think that is it makes people just kind of open their eyes and understand each other a little bit more. Um, you know.
Well, and it's also important to note that my colleague and I, Jesse and myself, and we're good friends, like we're able to do these things because of the people that came before us,
Mhm. Mhm.
all the folks who have maintained this program, and also like all the folks who have helped to maintain me
Right.
just just to exist, and make it through my PhD,
Right.
shout out,
Right.
and so like we're able to do these things because of, community and all the folks, in the past. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Um, I would love one day, just I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that class, just to hear the discussions going on. Because it just, like I said, it's just something that's great and is also definitely needed. Um, the articles that you have written, um, how how did that come about? You know.
yeah. So the Freedom Dreaming article is a part of my dissertation. It's just a section of it.
Hmm.
And that article is focused on the experience of four practicing music teachers. They went through a workshop that I facilitated, and that workshop was focused on critical race theory.
Hmm.
And the questions that I had is like, if music teachers have an understanding of systemic racism through the lens of critical race theory, how does that affect their teaching? And our culminating activity was about freedom dreaming. So it's like, okay, we've gone through this experience together, and mind you, it was an
Hmm.
experience. We all learned, we all grew together. And my questions were, once we go through this experience, how does that affect your music teaching?
Hmm.
And the interesting and the premise of it, right, with Robin D.G. Kelly and thinking about freedom dreaming, it's not just about understanding the systems that we have to tear down, right? It's
Hmm.
also about being able to dream and imagine what we can build without barriers, right? And being able to identify what we can build, start and give ourselves permission to dream without barriers, right? So that we have a foundation for whenever the barriers come, we can start to we can have a better chance of addressing whatever barriers come. But the premise of it was for these teachers to identify their dreams. And what was interesting was, you know, many of them were talking about the importance of understanding systemic racism
Hmm.
and also thinking about their practices. They, they talked about access, right? But they also talked about something that was a bit more broad and a bit more abstract with regards to giving students an opportunity to have more space for student creativity and student exploration to be centered, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So as I mentioned before, it's not just right the notes on the page, right, but having space to have additional avenues of creating.
Okay. Yeah, that that sounds great. Um uh why do you feel it is important? Why do you feel that music education is needs to continue to be important in society?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, being a teacher is one of the it is an incredible profession, right?
Hmm.
Being a teacher, you have so much influence. And I am grateful for the families that I interacted with as a teacher.
Hmm.
When I was in the public schools, I'm grateful because some of the families, and there are some that I'm still in contact with, right? And
Hmm.
like, and this is like 15 years ago. Whoop. Anyway, um, but um, but they were like, you're the expert, we we have faith in what it is that you are teaching, my kid. And, we value what you do, right?
Hmm.
So I felt valued as an educator. And I think it's so important for our teachers today to feel that value, that sense of value, because the imprint that teachers make on students, it's profound,
Hmm.
right? I'm certain we all can think of a both a positive and a perhaps a less positive interaction that we've had with teachers, but we can still remember it because
Hmm.
it's so impactful.
Hmm.
So that's first, right? Being a teacher is incredibly important. Now, being a music teacher, now that is something that's incredibly special
Right,
because we
right.
get to help students. There's another level of not just learning content, but
Hmm.
learning about the self, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And there's something that's very connected with regards to music making, music listening, and
Yep.
just self identity.
Yep.
And so within both my general music classes at the elementary level, like the kindergartners and first graders, and my middle schoolers, we talked about how this music makes us feel, how it connects to us, and how it represents different parts of our humanity, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
differences that we have, but yet we are still human, and our humanity needs to be front and centered,
Hmm.
right? And then to add that creative element, I think, and there are some researchers out there that talk about like, I don't know, just this idea of this creative aspect, and having that be the forefront of learning, right? Because that's where innovation comes from,
Yep.
right? And music teachers, we get to do that, you know our first part, our first, like, we get to be creative
Yep.
with our students.
Yep.
Um, um and yeah, so yeah, being a music teacher is so important, and I think that's what's going to, really, yeah, it's gonna, yeah, being a music teacher and students being able to be in music classes and creative based classes,
Hmm.
those are the things that keep folks afloat.
I I love being a music teacher so much because of everything that you just said, and just for me, just seeing them grow in that creativity, in their maturity. I just recently, there's two students in my class that one I had in sixth grade, I didn't have him in seventh grade, and then I have him again in eighth grade. And I thought to myself, why did you sign up for this class? Because this boy just gave me the blues every single day. And I just
We
thought,
all know those students.
right. And to see him now as an eighth grader, like actually really putting forth the effort to one, be a better musician, and two, actually trying to, like, asking me, well, how are you doing today?
Mm.
And I'm thinking to myself, when he asked me that, I'm like, I'm looking at him like, where is this coming from? Where is this going? And so then I thought, okay. And then he kept, like, day after day, he's just like, well, how are you doing? And I'm thinking, okay, I think this child has actually hit another level of, you know, um, like, one, liking himself, and two, actually liking the class that he's in.
Yeah.
And he's not always trying to be the class clown. So, um, but and I would, and even in sixth grade, I'd tell him, I said, "There's a time and a place." I said, "I know you like to crack jokes, and I know you like to get that attention, but save it for another time. At the end of the class, I'll give you that time to be on stage if you want to do that." Um, but it's been interesting to see that, to see him mature. And then I have another kid that, to see him musically um, mature, and And when I give him that praise, and then I get the class to join in on the praise, to see that glow on him, it's just
Mm.
like, oh gosh. And and it's one of these feelings where I'm like, it's like a sigh of relief, like, oh, okay, he finally is getting it. This is
Yeah.
such a great moment. And then for the kids, because the kids were just like, this boy ain't never gonna get it. We all struggling because he's a bass drum player, and it's like, it's like, we just want you to be on beat. Just, can you do it? And now he's doing it, and now you see
Mm.
this confidence on him, and he comes in and he's just like, yeah, I'm ready to play. And it's like, the kids are just like, okay, all right, you're doing good. We see you, we see you. So it's I love being a music teacher for
Yeah.
moments. For
Those
those
moments
moments.
of growth. Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, all
yeah,
of it.
yeah. It's an amazing feeling. Um,
Yeah.
how do you or who inspires you? Who has inspired you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've had so many Black women who have inspired me. I always, it's always starts with family, and starts with all
Mhm,
my loved ones,
mhm.
and so yeah, my family for sure, my mom, and I have a twin sister.
Oh, okay.
She's cool. She
Oh,
she teaches at Ohio State.
okay,
Another school, yeah.
okay.
Um, uh,
Well, she's in higher ed just like you, so you know.
yeah, and, I have 2 other older sisters and 2 older brothers, my dad, and all my aunts. Just growing up, I always felt, cared for.
Okay.
And so that it was this sense of that was a source of motivation, and the people who also inspire me today, like I think of uh, I think of the people who are like doing it right, like the people who are like talking the talk, walking the walk,
Mhm.
and are just an example of what it means to care for others, right? I think about my wife, right?
Mhm,
I think about all the folks who are, just, selfless, right?
mhm,
And are, pour into others. Those
mhm.
are the people who inspire me for sure.
Okay. I love hearing that, people who are inspiring you. How do you try and inspire your students, or how have you inspired your students in the past?
Yeah, I do my best to just be a model,
Mhm,
right? A model of imperfection,
mhm,
a model of a constant learner,
mhm,
somebody who, you know, um, might not get it right all the time, but can address mistakes and can also recognize different ways in the process of growth,
mhm,
right? And so I want to be a model to my students of what it means to be human, right?
mhm.
I want to be a model and an example of them of, if you're sick, sit on down. If you need to rest, go ahead and rest,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I try to model.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Um, who inspires you musically?
No, yeah. So, okay, so we'll talk about some artists. Right now, if you see my Spotify Wrapped, um, uh, you'll see some Brittany Howard.
Okay.
I love Brittany Howard and just like her command on the stage, but also how freeing
Mhm,
she sings when she is sharing her music to her audience.
mhm.
Mm,
Okay.
she's one of my faves at this moment.
Okay. Okay. Um, who inspires you in an education type of realm?
Um, uh, like the idea of just constantly learning?
Mhm.
Is that what you mean?
Mhm.
I think about you know, the folks who I've been able to, like, share space with,
Mhm.
and, the folks who, like, I want to it's like, "Okay, I see what you're doing there," I might not be able to do it just like you, but, I'll find my way of doing it. I
Uh-huh.
was incredibly supported by, my dissertation advisor, Juliet Hess. She's great.
Mhm.
She's also brilliant, and she's just, you know, you know, and so, that's a person for sure.
Okay. Um, are you working on any projects
Oh,
or
sure. Yeah.
performances? I'm sure as an educator, there's always something to work on.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so what are some things that you're currently working on?
So I have a manuscript that I just like an article that's recently been submitted. About this idea of interconnectedness within music education. We
Mhm.
are all interconnected. Music making is inherently interconnected, and there's also some Black feminist writers that talk about interconnection in very
Mhm.
powerful ways. And so I try and meld some of their understanding of interconnection through a Black feminist lens,
Mhm.
and I relate that to my experiences as a music teacher, just kind of as an offering to any other music educators that might think connects to them in their work.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Um, what do you enjoy doing in your free time?
Okay. So, yeah, joy is important. Joy is important, right? We are not made just to work.
Right. Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah.
We're working.
Labor, you know, is is an exchange. It's a transaction, and
Right.
so you best believe there are things to be done
Right.
outside of work.
Right.
So now I'm just okay. So it's like, where do I want to start? So, the things that bring me joy. Okay, I'll start with some of the self-care, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I work out a lot. I do Orange Theory. It's a wonderful workout. And I've been known to do triathlons. Yeah, for joy, right?
Okay.
It is of joy.
Oh, hey,
Um,
to each his or
singing,
her own.
yeah, playing music, in my living room with friends, that
Mhm.
is incredibly joyful.
Okay.
And then, other things that I do outside with my free time is, I'm also involved here on campus with, union organizing. So,
Okay.
and there are days when that is joyful as well.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, oh, okay.
Days it's okay. It's work. It's work, but it's
Yeah.
something that is fulfilling for me.
Okay. Um, are there any uh TV shows, books, that you watch when you come home and you're like, you know what, let me just decompress, let me just be brainless for a moment and just go for it.
So actually, I find the choice of, like choosing a TV show to be
Uh-huh.
very stressful.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't, it's not, so I'm typically fine to watch whatever it is that my wife has on. And
Okay.
then I'll kind of be like, oh, what is this show? The Real Housewives of what? I'm not
Oh,
watching this. But then I'm watching it and I'm like,
right,
"Oh,
right.
why did they do that? Ooh, somebody's about to get yelled at." And then I'm like, "Ooh, don't start it without me." And then, so I end up really watching whatever Quinn watches, you know, and
Okay.
yeah. But there are some like shared TV shows that are enjoyable. We just got finished rewatching Since 8. It's on Netflix. It's a good show. Have you
I
watched it?
okay, that's I saw that when it came out,
Oh,
and I saw every episode except for I think the last two.
yep. Yeah, and the last one is like a big it's just like a cinematic, movie length, you know.
Right, right, right.
It's all
And
out there
it
by
and
that time.
it is a good show. There's
Mhm.
another one. Oh gosh, it's British. It's a Black British, because it has to deal with um they have sickle cell or the sickle cell trait, and they
Oh.
actually end up exhibiting these like superpowers kind of
Mhm.
thing. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to email it to you.
Ooh, please do.
Really,
I'd like to watch it.
it's really well written. The Brits can write some stuff.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
they have some good shows.
Yeah, I just don't have the patience when I'm coming home to scroll, I used to like network TV, before scrolling, before, like having all these different options. Like, you remember when?
Yeah,
What does the TV guide say?
you're right.
I guess
Right,
we'll watch that.
right,
I mean, but
right.
also don't put me past like I watch some sports ball. I watch some sports ball for sure, you know,
Okay. Yeah, the only time I do that is when the Olympics are on. That's when I'm like, go
every few years.
USA, go Black America. Yeah. It was or go Black people in other parts of the
Mhm.
world.
Yeah,
That's what I'm all about.
yeah.
Because to me, watching sports is stressful. Because I'm like, rules, what does that mean? It's just too much.
Yeah, the
Um,
WNBA has some really good, really highly competitive, great season,
mhm.
into that.
I remembered. Supercell. That's the name of
Ah,
the show.
all right, I'm writing it down.
Supercell, and it's so good. It's so good. And then I just found out that there's going to be another season too. So,
Love
you
it.
know, uh, let's see. There was something else I was going
Mhm.
to ask. Um, so your experience with getting your master's and your PhD, that was a positive experience when you were going through
It was positive when it was over. I mean, it
it.
was challenging. I
Okay.
mean, it was a challenging experience. So
Mhm.
my master's was less challenging, right? I thought I was gonna, for whatever reason, I was like, ooh, maybe I'll go into school leadership and be a principal, and shout out to all the principals out there. Y'all be doing it. Y'all be doing some work. And after the first class, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna finish this degree. But I don't think that's my ministry.
Okay.
Um, uh, and but and so during my PhD, like it was challenging. It was hard, right?
Mhm,
But the way that you make it through is with your community. I'm very grateful for the community that I had,
mhm,
and so it was a community, family, support, and that's how you deal with the BS. The BS is everywhere, right?
mhm,
Within this capitalistic system. It's
mhm,
everywhere, right? And
mhm,
the only way that we make it through is with the people who you're around. So my
mhm.
cohort, during my PhD, that's what yeah, yeah,
Okay.
my community,
Okay. Well,
my
that
loved
that's
ones.
that's good. That's good. That having that support is so incredibly important, so you can get through, like you said, get through it. And you said you're glad it's over.
Yeah. That's the
So
best part.
right, right. Um. Well, I think those were all the questions that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
But at maybe at another time, I will have you back on. Checking in, and just I might have some other questions that I just couldn't think of at this time.
Sure.
Um, but I am so grateful, you all, that I got to talk with Amy Lewis, who is assistant professor of the music education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, my alma mater. Go Badgers.
Go
Uh,
back.
so this has been another great episode of Melanated Artists in Performance. And I, again, thank you, Miss Lewis. Professor Lewis, I should say.
Doctor.
Doctor, excuse me.
Yeah,
Excuse
like I
me.
said, I went through the BS.
Yeah.
It
Excuse
was
me.
great when it was over. Went through it, doctor. Thank you.
So, yes, I want to thank Dr. Amy Lewis, Assistant Professor of Music Education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, for being a wonderful guest tonight. And this has been another great episode.
Thank you.